Welcome and thank you for joining us for the Get Real workshop. With me is John Crotty, who heads up our Platform One efforts, and I'm Yasha Ulrich Sturmat. Obviously, we both are from Neustar. So today I want to talk to you about the quest to engage in a personalized dialogue with customers and prospects across all touch points, and also show you how Neustar's Platform One helps you plan, target, and measure your media campaigns by leveraging our authoritative identity. Recently, a lot has been written about cross-channel and cross-device marketing, but we all know that we haven't reached the promised land quite yet. One of the biggest challenges to cross-device marketing is mobile targeting and mobile measurement. According to a study we actually conducted with MMA last year, 38% of marketers held back their spend on mobile because they didn't know how to accurately target audiences, while 34% expressed concern to get access to the right data. Is my mic okay? Okay. So what do I mean when I say the promised land? Well, what if you could deliver a personalized and a relevant ad across every touch point at the right time and measure and optimize in real time? Well, why don't we take a look and see what marketing's version of Pleasantville, as I like to call it, looks like with a real-life example. Let's meet Joe. Joe is an avid sports enthusiast. He loves not only watching sports, but also participating in a fantasy league. But he hasn't really won any bragging rights with his buddies because he hasn't won the league. Some of us know that humiliation oh too well. But anyways, he believes that the tablet will enable him to stay on top of the sports news even when he's on the go with his family. He's convinced a tablet is going to make him a champion. So let's go on the customer journey with Joe. It's Friday, and the week is winding down. And he starts his search for the tablet. But before he heads home for the weekend, he browses around, but then loses time and then decides it's time to get on the road so that he doesn't miss movie night with the family. So on Sunday, he's fine-tuning his lineup. He thinks he's going to win this week, and he gets retargeted with an ad from the website he visited on Friday. But he actually notices the ad, makes a mental note, says, I'm going to go back to this website. I first got to submit my lineup. So before he sits down and watches the games, he goes to the website and starts looking for tablets. He actually chooses one, places one in the cart, but abandons it because his family, of course, distracts him and he never completes the transaction. So Monday morning comes around, he's drinking his coffee, and he's catching up on what happened with his friends over the weekend on Facebook, and he decides to pick up the search for his tablet and ask them for their recommendations. Of course, he gets mixed reviews on the model that he had chosen, not too helpful, but he decides he's determined to finish the purchase and he's going to go in store to look at some. So during his lunch break, he goes to a store and he actually goes and plays with some, and he finds his tablet, and of course it's the model he had chosen all along. But he does not choose to buy it on the spot because he wants to hunt for the best deal online. Yes, Joe is a deal seeker, but he's also eyeing a new TV. And so he's willing to give the rep his customer information, who does update the customer record, but also marks down his tablet preferences and the fact that he's a deal seeker. So now, a couple days later, he's sitting back and he's starting his research for that weekend's game. And he gets targeted with a very relevant ad from that retailer for 10% off for the exact same model that he had previously chosen in the store. He hadn't found a better offer, so he actually finally jumps on it and pulls the trigger. So you fast forward, and he has his tablet, but within the first week, he nearly drops it. Anyone been there? Anyways, so he calls in for an extended warranty. After taking care of the warranty, the agent decides to pitch him on a keyboard. But of course, shockingly, Joe does not pull the trigger. So again, the agent marks him to receive an offer because he exhibited the exact same purchasing behavior he did with his tablet. So that Sunday, he's kicking back. He's keeping up to date on his fantasy team with a shiny new tablet. And he gets retargeted with a highly relevant ad for $5 off for the exact same keyboard he had been pitched on. He is so impressed that he actually buys it on the spot and does not do any comparison shopping. Okay, let's snap out of marketing's Pleasantville. Okay? So why is this still the promised land and not yet reality? Well, earlier I mentioned a couple stats from a study last year. Well, just recently there was a study by Forrester Consulting where only 13% of marketers had confidence in their ability to measure cross-device campaigns. But the good news is that 93% of them also said that they would increase their spend if the measurement problem was solved. So why is this really so hard? Well, at the end of the day, consumers or customers are real people, and people change. Did you know, for example, that 75 million of people changed their phone numbers? 45 million changed some part of their contact info. 16 million relocate households, or what I find astounding, 2.1 million people actually legally change their name every year. So you couple that with the fact that the amount of publicly available information to basically verify fractional customer and prospect information has shrunk dramatically since 2000, dropping from 78 to 30%. So, and then lastly, the number of channels and devices consumers are engaging with just continues to grow exponentially. And so increasing the complexity you as marketers have to deal with throughout the customer journey. Look, at the end of the day, you want to grow long-term customer value, right, by increasing the share of wallet, but also you want to improve the customer experience with your brand. Getting one view of your customer across all touch points is the key to engage in a personalized dialogue across multiple channels and devices. And it also is only with an authoritative identity can you actually target real audiences at scale and drive LTV. Yesterday, our CMO, Lisa Joy Rosner, talked about or discussed why identity mattrs. Our solution, which enables precision marketing to real people, is powered by authoritative identity. It gives you one view of your customer, which ultimately allows you to find and target real audiences at scale and measure and optimize media campaigns to ultimately grow reach, driving great engagement, and increase sales, delivering real results. Our identity methodology is actually unique because it uses a combination of techniques to link verified data, such as wireless data, with our identity foundation based on over 220 million adults and 120 million individuals. It is then further augmented and linked with 15,000 offline and online attributes, or predictive attributes, across multiple third-party sources in many different industries. But most importantly, and we call this the network effect of data, it is continuously corroborated with billions of anonymized daily transactions. This is what allows us to keep up with the rapid consumer change and deliver the freshest audience data. Of course, we do this with privacy by design at the core. But look, enough about this, and let's go and show you Platform One. It wouldn't be a demo without technical difficulties, so as we switch, we got to figure out some display issues. So while John is changing the resolution, you will see our, there it is. You will see Platform One. And basically I want to talk through three use cases. One is you just come and you're using our authoritative data set and you want to leverage that for campaign planning. The second one is you want to augment that with the CRM data that you have. And then third, I want to show you how you can measure and optimize media campaigns. So where John is right now is the home page. And basically, you can see we're going to talk about the three use cases: audience planning, customer intelligence, and media intelligence. Everything in one view. So let's just assume, and tie it back to Joe, let's assume that you're Acme Corp and you want to run a national campaign to target tablet buyers, right? So let's go in, and the first thing we're going to search for is for tablet buyers. So John. While John searches, you can see that you saw, if you don't mind, sorry, going back for just 1 second. Right now, we have down there about 17,000 different attributes that we can pull from, but because we know the audience, I asked them to search for tablet buyers. So John, sorry if you don't mind repeating that. And basically, we choose from the category, and in there we have basically two audiences that we see. One's iPad, shocking, and then other brands own. But that doesn't tell you much. So John is going to start the first drill into the data. And you can see here the difference between the two audiences. The iPad owners have less home ownership, but they also have a greater likelihood to have children. So let's drill even further into the detail of that audience and see what happens. So now what we've done is we've mapped this audience or this attribute against our authoritative data set of the 172 segments. And remember that only one household can be in each segment, right? And basically, the size of the graph shows the propensity of that attribute to be represented in that household. And so right here you see the reach of 12 million people. And you also see what we expect to get from media partners, 44, 8.9, 16. The difference is we're showing you households, they're showing you uniques, not deduped. So, John, why don't we show them how we can change out some of our media partners? We have over 65, and so you can easily just drag and drop, and why don't we add in some of our mobile partners we just announced. We got 9th Decimal, and the Delphic. Is that working? Again, it wouldn't be a demo. Perfect. So basically now it pulls out. But what do I do with this? Let me show you how to use it. So right here what you see is this attribute of iPad owners, right? It shows 12 million U.S. households with a 6.9 index score. The way I like to think about it is this is your choice between precision and reach. So let's assume, again, it's a tablet campaign and it's a brand awareness campaign. And so I want to grow reach. It's ultimately top funnel, right? So let's just very easily move the slider over, and I don't know if people over there can see, but what John is doing at the same time, the index score is lowering and dropping down to 3x. So let's just say we're fine with that. But the way to think about it is that just for a little bit more than 50% in drop in precision, we actually have increased the reach by 5x, going from 12 to 59 million, right? So let's say we're fine with that, and we want to save this audience, and what are we going to call it? We're going to call it Ad Advisor, Tablet, whatever you want to call it, John. Buyers. And we already set up an advertiser, Acme, so we're going to associate it with that. And basically now you have started an audience, right? But, again, bringing you back to Joe, we not only are we looking for tablet buyers, but we're looking for sports enthusiasts. Football season, so let's go and add football watchers to that. So he is now looking for people who watch NFL. Again, we have a bunch of profiles there. We can select them. And now you see the composition of that attribute. And let's just say we're fine with the trade-off between precision and reach, the same way we were with iPad owners. So John is just going to go and take that index to 3x. And you see that that audience is large. But let's just add that to our audience and update it. Now, there is an overlap between households. So the two numbers are not going to add up. But you do see that when you add them up, the reach is 67.4 million, and it's broken down into our respective media partners. So John, let's update that. And there we have it. One other feature that I want to show is that you can, now that you have these attributes in there, you can also go in and adjust them together as the slider. So if you adjust the reach, now John can go and play around with one attribute being more precise than the other. Again, it just really allows you to tailor the audience that fits your campaign strategy. We could do 14,000 iterations. Let's just say we're fine with this. And now you basically can syndicate to the media partners that we are showing you here, and you've built an audience based on our authoritative data set. Let's go to the next scenario, which is is to leverage the CRM data that you have. It's the most valuable data asset you have, so what do we do with it? So the thing that we want to do is we want to go into our marketing analytics and segmentation platform, Element 1, and we have uploaded the CRM file. But right here you see it, and the note is there's a great match rate against our households, around 98.36%. And the majority of them are residential, which is great because we're trying to target consumers. So let's build an audience. So again, this is a national campaign, so we want to benchmark it against the US, which John is doing right now, and then we can save it as an audience and go into sort of run it again, and then go into the sort of a deeper analytics profile and go into the customer analyzer. He's saving it against the US. And now that's saved. So now what do I do with it? I want to go into the customer analyzer, and now you see the segments that are part of that audience, and you sort of see garbage over there on the segments, and I don't quite know what to make sense of it. So again, similar to the audience planner, I can go and click on the index, so I get some kind of correlation of the propensity of those attributes to be, of those segments to be in the to be present. So you see that the histogram redraws. And John, why don't we go and select all the way to that second cliff where we have about a 2.2 index. So again, similar to the previous example, we're going with a higher index against the U.S. household and trying to grow reach. It's very similar to that, to what I showed you in the audience planner. Why? Because they're actually tied together and based on the same authoritative data. So now you also see the segments highlighted, and John can save that as a group. And what is the advantage of the group? Well, interestingly enough, our customers use this in different ways. One of the ways I find interesting is that they save groups as custom profiles to use over and over. They can modify, edit, delete. But one of the advantages, and also we offer obviously professional services to custom tailor some of these groups. But then if you take an electronics store, because we're back in our little story, you could create an audience for a PC buyer, an audience for an accessory buyer, an audience for a mobile phone buyer, and then you can reuse that against campaigns and different tactics, and you don't have to go through the workflow every single time. And then again, John is showing it here, the reach across our media partners, and then you syndicate. But before I go into measurement and optimization, I actually want to touch on some of the offline marketing use cases that this platform can drive. So right here we have a geospatial representation of the first audience, the audience we just built on our data, right? And you see the U.S. map, but heck, we're in New York, so let's go and zoom in. While John does that, what this is a representation at the state level of how the state indexes against that audience that we created. Darker colors is a higher index, lighter colors is a lesser index. So this takes a little bit of time, although we have a good connection. And John, why don't we go down to the zip level? And here's sort of a scenario I want to paint for you, which is, imagine that we're down, zoom in a little bit more. But in that, I want you to take a look at sort of that right here, that area. Now, this is the first audience we've created, right? We haven't used your precious CRM data. Let's see what happens to the composition of that audience when we switch to the CRM-based audience. Bada bing. Right there. It changes quite dramatically. Right. So what does that mean? It doesn't mean one is good or bad from a data perspective. It just means your CRM data is more tailored to you and the audiences that you have, and you created a lookalike audience based on your customer profiles. But it allows you to personalize and tailor the message that you want to deliver in those zip codes. So let's use a use case where you can bring in and overlay your store locations. And now you want to have in-store offers. Well, you don't want to give the same offer in a zip code where there's not high propensity as a store that's located in a zip code with a very high propensity. So those stars show our locations. But now let's say you have a co-marketing program with Starbucks. Either you're giving away loaner tablets or free Wi-Fi hotspots, and you're together in doing a co-marketing program. How do you develop a very tailored co-marketing program with your partner? Well, you just overlay them, and now you can see the correlation between those locations and your store locations. And I just think it's a pretty powerful tool. So enough about that, and let's go into how to measure it. So assume we've run the campaigns, we've made some tweaks to the audiences, and now let's optimize and really try to drive ROI on the media campaigns per se. Where this takes you is lands you in this trends overview. And the way to think about it is we call that area the scope. And think of it like a SQL, like a query into a database, right? If you change it, it just changes the data set. So right here, it's the advertiser. Based on permissioning, people have access to certain accounts. We all manage that in the back end. And then you have the campaigns that pop up. And think of that as cross-channel. You could have your reserved buy on the MSN homepage or on the Yahoo homepage. You could have your ad network buys. You can have your exchange buys. You can have your video buys. This is cross-channel. It exists today. And then what we also have created just recently is campaign groups, and we call it we don't call it tactics or strategies because you guys kind of flip and flop on it a little bit on what you call it. And so it's an ad hoc way of grouping campaigns for either a tactic or for strategy, and everything gets recalculated based on that grouping. And then we have sort of an aggregation of the main data points that we want to call out. Volume, uniques, clicks, actions. For us, actions are conversions as well as high-value activities. For some people, downloading a brochure. I talked with Kraft. I don't know if Kraft is in the room a few months ago. But downloading a recipe is a very high-value activity. We capture both. And then costs. So if we go back in each one of these, we can pit two different KPIs against each other. So you can see the impact of views or impressions against uniques or cumulative uniques, and it just redraws it. And then down below you see the table, and that's access to the raw data. And if folks want to download that and get access to it and roll around in the raw data, they're free to do so. Yeah, you and I don't want to do that. But the other thing is the view on campaigns. What I like about this is that you can see the impact of one campaign onto another. So let's see the impact of an acquisition campaign on the retargeting campaign, or vice versa. And you see right around mid-September that as my volume in site retargeting drops, the volume in acquisition drops. One of the nice features as you're trying in real time, or as I like to call it, human time, investigate what's going on, you can zoom in on that graph and let go. And everything, the top KPIs recalculate and the individual metrics. So again, you have a dashboard, you want to find out as fast as you can click what's going on, we have the data available to you. But enough about that. Let's pick up the storyline around Joe. We created two audiences, and we want to see how our targeting efforts are doing. So we click on the targeting tab, and again, we have the scope. Now we've added a scope of audiences because it's targeting. And so the other thing that we've done is that we're able to score all data providers against each other. Our data sources, third-party data sources, CRM-based data sources, but you get a neutral, unbiased look at how data providers perform, right? So that's in the drop-down he's showing. But again, for demo purposes, let's go and focus on the audiences we created. And so John is just going to create, we've gone in, as I said, we've gone in on a monthly basis, we've sort of tweaked with these audiences, and let me show how we do that. So you simply select that, and the scope changes, and now you see the attributes that are being targeted across the data providers. And right now what we're showing are the number of people who have seen an ad. Right, so 14.9 million, 4.36, blah, blah, blah. That's okay data, but I don't kind of know much. I don't know if I've exhausted my reach. I don't know how they're performing. So let's first figure out if we have exhausted our reach or maximized it. So the first thing we're going to bring in is total size. Again, what you see now is that, oh, I have shown 14.9 million ads, but the universe of that attribute that we see is 33.4 million. So I haven't quite exhausted my reach on that attribute, and I'm targeting it because of the blue little hash mark there. Again, useful information. I would argue I still don't know if that's good or bad. I still don't know if I want to continue targeting that. So what if I now bring in a performance KPI? And let's bring in actions per thousand index, and that is the conversion rate in that data set indexed against themselves. So anything above 100, good. Anything below, not so good. So now suddenly I can actually sort by APM index, and I can say, oh, I have two attributes where I've actually not maximized my reach at all, and they're performing really well. So I now want to drag them over and build an audience. And now you see that the total size is 17.6 million available, right? Again, deduped across each other. We dedupe uniques on the fly. So now I want to do the reverse. I want to eliminate attributes that are not performing well. So we reverse the sort, and we pull in a couple of attributes where I'm spending 2.94, you're spending 2.94 and 3.22 million impressions that are not performing up to par, right? So I want to eliminate that. That size is 14.5 million, but if you notice what happened to the total, it only dropped by 700K. That's probably because there's a very high overlap between those two audiences, and you actually haven't reduced your reach much at all for the increase in precision. And now you create the audience and you syndicate it. So this is where we show you how to optimize the targeting. One question that still remains unanswered is, how are my media partners performing? How is one versus the other? So in order to look at that, we go to the Reach and Overlap tab. And what we do there, I call it the distance chart going from A to B. But basically, we can show and we rank the media partners, again for that scope, for those campaigns, against each other. And the way to read that is top-down. So Adelphic, all the way down, drives 12.7 million uniques and has overlap with Yahoo, MSN, and I'll go into exactly what that means. Right? But first, let's just pick up the story and go to the three platform partners that we had selected in the audience planner and see how they're doing. Keep in mind, guys, this is demo data, so some of it, I'm not picking on one versus the other. But basically, this chart is a lot simpler because we just had 4 partners for that mobile campaign, right? But what you see right away on the left is sort of aggregated data, 21.5 million total reach. But what you see here right away is that AppNexus actually has high overlap with Voltari and Adelphic. So I might want to look at that and see if the overlap is good or bad. Not all overlap is bad. Depends on cost, depends on how many actions you drive. Again, that's a case-by-case basis, but you have what we're giving you is the information in your hands to make those decisions. One of the better way, if we go back to all campaigns, John, I like it with more color, sorry, is, again, not picking on anyone, but if you see, and actually one thing I'll show you see that heat map over there on the left, John, where you can go and you can scroll and go into areas of green and red, right, just visually, and see red overlap. And we also have an ability to change into different colors because, again, some folks don't want to show. Not all overlap is bad, and I want to be very, very clear about that. And so there are ways you can change the display. But in this case, the highest red here happens to be Tern and Kelley Blue Book, 49.3%. So nearly half of the 11.8 million uniques are shared between those two. Well, okay, good or bad? I kind of don't know. So again, I can change the metrics on the table, and let's just eliminate average frequency and APM, and let's bring in total actions, raw actions, and some cost number. So again, now I can go and I can say, okay, well, Tern drove 6.93 thousand conversions, or roughly 7,000 conversions, and again, this is made-up data. I'm not picking on Tern, please, but I'm illustrating a point. And Kelley Blue Book drove 15,000 conversions, but at 4x the cost. So you can make a decision as to whether you want to continue that campaign or not. Is it worth it? Is it not? How do you tailor between those two? That's sort of how to use this tool. So I think this actually wraps up the part of the demo, and now we got to do our hand waving on the change on your display, right? Because instead of finishing with the traditional slide with only 3 points that I want you to go home with, I actually decided to change that up and let our customers talk for us. And so there are many recent ones, and I picked 3 when we can figure out our resolution. I'm not blaming you, although I am. Nope. So the first one is Cord Blood, and we started working with them, and they use our platform to increase the lead quality initially, and they saw immediately conversion rates go all the way, improve all the way to 10x, and we recently started working with them also on the digital campaigns. So phenomenal results. The second point, is 3-Day Blinds, who also is working with us to explore new geographies and new markets to enter. But the third one, I want to speak for himself, Louis from Lenovo. He uses us to ensure that he delivers the right creative and the right banner when folks come and visit his website. So he leverages very much our media marketing analytics and segmentation tool. So let's listen to Louis.
If you look at Lenovo as a whole, we are still building our brand in North America from a consumer perspective. Every individual is hit with 5,000 marketing messages every single day. It's really important for us to cut through the clutter, and the way we're trying to accomplish that is being truly, truly relevant, to have that great first impression. The New Star team is really helping us accomplish some of our goals and some of our real sticking points by providing us with the data intelligence and the support team that allows us to truly understand our customers, their needs, and then put relevant messaging in front of them at the proper time. We were able to increase revenue per visitor and conversion rate for first-time visitors to the website by providing them simply a more relevant message at first point of touch. Our team was blown away by the data points. The data numbers were actually so good that we thought that there was a problem with the reporting. It really opened our eyes to the opportunities that we have with taking a message and tailoring it to our customer sets. They brought a new outlook. They brought great data points and recommendations. I would absolutely recommend New Star to other businesses. My name is Louis Broadnax from Lenovo, and I am a New Star customer.
That's it. We've got the clock is ticking, 6 minutes. Are there any questions we can help answer? Sure.
I believe you'll want to talk I believe you're one of the partners with Facebook's Atlas. Can you explain how your partnership worked with them, and should we just consider them as one of your many data partners, or is this something deeper than that? Thanks.
No, great question. Oops. So fundamentally we are the underlying DMP infrastructure behind Omnicom. And so when I talk about our authoritative identity, we do need to bring in as many data points as we can to build that complete identity picture. So as Facebook is building a deterministic ID, so are we, and we have to ensure that we can work with many different data providers. So they're a great partner. We are able, in order for us to give this view to Omnicom, we of course have to work with Atlas and Facebook in order for them to show up in the region overlap and in all the analytics that we showed. Yes? I didn't hear. So the data comes from our authoritative data and what we see out there. So we continuously get fresh data that we know the propensities for folks to convert and to be representative in that household. The data that you saw in the media intelligence platform is because we process enormous amount of volume that we see in real time. So when we say you're targeting X% of the universe to us is pretty much the internet because of the campaigns that we see. So, pardon?
I'm due to advertisements, so
okay. So the authoritative data is based on a foundation of 220 million adults and 120 million households. And we basically have linked some of those, what we call identifiers. Think of them as name, think of them as physical address, think of them as wireless data. And we link those to get a much more complete picture. I don't know if you were there for the slide with sort of the three bubbles. And so now that we've created a linkage around these identifiers, and all of it is anonymized, we then add on to that different offline sort of behavioral data, psychographic data that we go and augment. And then because we do get a lot of transaction, we can anonymize and continuously corroborate that to ensure it's fresh.
So who are the 220 million? That's half of the United States. So, I mean, who are the 220 million people, I guess?
So there are people who live in the U.S. that we have access on, that we get information, that we have information on, their name, their address. That's how it's built. We don't know it's you per se once we go out to target, but we know where it starts off. It's actually physical people. If you want, why don't we? I think it's a long. I don't want to rat hole. If you want, we can chat maybe after the session.
Sure.
Okay. Anything else? If not, I don't know if the bar is open, but I've never given a presentation by a bar. We were talking about next year maybe having an open bar session. You guys will maybe be enjoy this even more. But in any case, thank you very much for coming during the lunch hour.